If you've been scrolling through endless UPS options, weighing a cheap 500VA wall plug model for the home office against something that actually fits in a rack, and you still feel stuck, this review is here to clear that up. I've spent a few days digging into the specs, browsing the vendor support pages, and reading through 1,000 Amazon ratings to see where the real-world pros and cons actually lie. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's start with the problem most people face. You need a battery backup that can keep a handful of servers, networking switches, and maybe a NAS alive long enough to either finish a critical write or give you a clean shutdown. The Eaton Tripp Lite SMART3000RMXL2U is a 3000VA, 3000W unit that slides into a standard 2U rack. On paper, that looks like overkill for a modest office, but the real question is whether that extra capacity translates into useful runtime and flexibility when you actually plug in the gear you have. In a typical small to medium IT closet, you might have a couple of 1U servers, about 250W each, a PoE switch, roughly 150W under load, and a storage array that draws 200W. That adds up to around 850W, well under the 3000W rating, which means the UPS can run those devices for a respectable amount of time, roughly 10 to 15 minutes at full load, according to the manufacturer's curves. In practice, most reviewers I've seen mention getting about 8 minutes with that kind of load, which is enough to trigger an orderly shutdown script or give you a window to switch to a backup generator. If your load is lighter, say a single server and a couple of switches, you can stretch that to 20 minutes or more, which is a nice safety net during a brief utility flicker. One of the biggest draws of this model is the pure sine wave output. Many lower-priced UPSs output a simulated sine wave that can cause problems for sensitive equipment, especially active PFC power supplies found in modern servers. The pure sine wave here means you won't see the buzz or occasional hiccups that some users report with cheaper units. That's a practical strength you'll notice the moment you hook up a server that was previously balking at a cheap UPS, and it's a real value add beyond the headline VA number. The unit also includes automatic voltage regulation, AVR, which corrects minor brownout and overvoltage conditions without draining the battery. In a city where the utility line can dip to 100V during peak hours, AVR can keep your equipment running without ever touching the battery reserve. That translates to longer overall battery life because you're not cycling the battery for every little voltage wobble. For anyone who's seen their UPS beep every time a neighbor turns on a heavy air conditioner, this feature alone can be a deal breaker. Now, let's talk about the rack mount form factor and the network card slot. The SMART3000RMXL2U takes up 2U of rack space, which is a reasonable footprint for a device that can support up to 7 outlets. The outlets are split between battery-backed and surgeonly, letting you reserve the battery power for critical gear while still protecting everything else from spikes. The optional web management card, which you can install in the front-facing slot, gives you remote monitoring, email alerts, and the ability to shut down connected devices via SNMP. In a multi-site environment, that remote control is priceless. You can see the battery percentage, load level, and runtime estimate from a laptop without pulling the UPS out of the rack. But there are hidden trade-offs. First, the UPS is fairly heavy, around 70 pounds, so you need a sturdy rack or a dedicated floor stand. It's not something you'll casually slide onto a desk. Second, while the unit is expandable in theory, you can add external battery packs. The actual process involves proprietary connectors and an additional cost that can quickly add up. If you're buying this hoping to future-proof for a larger data center, you should budget for those extra packs. Third, the user interface on the front panel is functional but not the most intuitive. You have to cycle through a few menus to see the exact remaining runtime, which can be a bit frustrating during a power event. That's a minor usability quirk, but it's worth noting if you're looking for a plug-and-play experience. Who should buy this? If you run a small server room, a network closet, or a home lab that houses multiple machines, and you already have a rack or are planning to install one, this UPS gives you the capacity and management tools you need without stepping into enterprise-grade pricing. It's also a solid choice for professionals who need the pure sine wave guarantee. Think video editors with workstations, or medical equipment that can't tolerate waveform distortion. The AVR and network card make it practical for environments where voltage stability isn't guaranteed and remote monitoring saves you a trip to the closet. Who should skip it? If you're a typical home office user with a single laptop, a monitor, and a router, a 3000VA rack mount unit is overkill in both size and price.